Hello everybody, Peter the Book Lover here, and it's been a while. It's been probably a month since I've made a video. It's been a while. And if you're new here, welcome. If you're coming back, welcome back. And it's good to see you. It's good to be making another video. I've been doing a lot of reading, but it's hard for me to get around to making the videos. Partially because the house is usually not quiet enough. Though I am on a quest to get a noise reduction microphone, so I could actually make videos when other people are here and they're making noise. Also, another delay is my Cinnabon right here. She really loves my lap in the winter months. So, you know, this is Layla. She's the oldest baby in the world. She's my Cinnabon, and I love her very much. So, I've been doing the Read What You Own challenge. I'm going to talk about that. I'm also going to talk about the 10 before the end. I actually completed it, but I'm making the video a little bit late. And I'm going to talk about the books that are coming. So, let's get into this. You know all the drill. Subscribe if you like the video. Leave a comment and like the video if you enjoy it. So let's get into this long introduction. But let's start off with the first book that I'm going to talk about. And this is the Master and Margarita. Now, the thing about this book, the first thing I want to say about this book, if you want to get into this book, this is a book that I believe you need to read twice for you to really get this story, because a lot of the names are only mentioned briefly and they're easy to get them confused. And I've been through this book twice. I actually read this book and finished it, and then I've read two other books, and when I was at the end of the second other book, I decided to reread this, and I'm very glad that I did, because this is a very, very good story. This is a story about the devil coming to Moscow, and him and his retinue spend about 4 or 5 days in Moscow, and they do a bunch of crazy things. Now, him and his retinue have a lot of different powers. The head of the retinue is Walland. He's the devil. And then he's got 4 other characters that come along with him. One is a black cat called Behemoth, and he's a really, really interesting character. I really enjoyed this character a lot. He's the funnest one. And there's Roykov, and that's the like his second-hand man. This is like pretty much the second in command. And then they got Alizello, which is kind of like a gangster character with a fang for a tooth that sticks out, and he also has an eye that's discolored. And then we've got Hela, which is a naked, beautiful woman that's also a vampire. And these people come to Moscow, and they start out by meeting these two characters, Belizdami, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly, and the other one is Belios. And they meet these people, and they're talking about does God exist, and they're atheists, and then they're saying that he doesn't exist. And then Walland is walking past them, and then he stops and he's like, I'm going to tell you, Jesus does exist. And then he makes a prediction of what's going to happen that winds up happening. He predicts a couple of things that are going to happen, and both things happen just like he says that they would. And before the prediction happens, then we go to this part to where it's Pontius Pilate. So you're talking about the time when Jesus Christ came into existence, he was going to get crucified. And this is about Pontius Pilate's struggle to crucify. His name is not Jesus. I forgot his name in this story. To tell you the truth, my least favorite parts about this was the parts with Pontius Pilate and the times where they go to the crucifixion of Christ. To tell you the truth, I prefer the actual Bible story opposed to this. But you go to this. But when you find out later that this is a novel, and this is the manuscript that doesn't burn. This is a story that was written by the Master, and the Master is a character that you meet later on. So they go to the Pontius Pilate part, and it's a chapter. Now, the thing about it is it's a little bit hard to get into that because it's a little bit dry, it's boring, and then when you get into the parts where the devil's in Moscow, that's very entertaining because there's a lot of crazy things that happen. Then they go and what he predicts happens. It's a really great scene and how it happens. Then he runs in, he sees for Roykov, plus he actually sees Behemoth, and Behemoth is a cat that's trying to get on a trolley car, and he even wants to pay, and then he can't get on. They won't allow him because they say the cats aren't allowed, and then he jumps on. And then this crazy event happens. I don't want to give anything away. And then another event happens, and it's about apartment they wind up taking over. They take over this apartment, and there's a lot of crazy things. You start learning that these people have all kinds of powers, and they set up this magical show, and then you could really see their magical powers. They could make you think that paper is money. They could teleport. They could teleport you. They could rip your head off and put it back on, and as you get your head ripped off, you're like, I need a doctor. It's because during this magic show, they do a lot of these tricks. They throw cards in the air, and the other one catches it with his mouth. The cat is doing all these acrobatic tricks. Then they give everybody the impression that there's a store on the stage, and they're telling people you could just for free come up and change your clothing, and it's just a trick, because afterwards, after the show, they're all naked, and it's a lot of really kind of crazy stuff. When I was first reading it, I didn't get the humor, but the second time going through this, I got the humor a lot more. This, in my opinion, this is definitely a book that you should read twice. And plus, after reading this twice, I actually watched this 10-part miniseries that's available on YouTube. I'm going to put it in the description. That's pretty accurate to the book, and it really becomes clear once you watch the miniseries. And then it also gets into a love story with Margarita and the Master. And an interesting thing about Margarita is she actually puts this cream on, and she becomes very much like a witch. And they also have this ball that's a satanic ball, to where all these dead people have this ball, and some other crazy things are in this book. Now, this is definitely a wonderful piece of literature. It's not very easy to get into, but definitely once you understand it, this is a very, very good book, and I highly recommend it. This is written by Mikhail Bulgakov. And the thing about this book is that he died before this book was actually edited and put together. So that's an interesting thing. And apparently this book really, like, if you knew the things were going on under Stalin's leadership, because this came out in like 1944, you could see that this really mimics a lot of the stuff in that, with how the police were really aggressive. And yeah, and there's some other crazy parts, but this is a book that's definitely worth your time. This is The Master and Margarita. That's the book, the 6th book that I read of the Read What You Own Challenge. Now, the next book that I read was this one right here. This is Hatchet by Gary Polson. And this book is a lot different. This book, the first time you read it, you're going to be completely understand what's going on. This is a story about a person that gets stuck in the wilderness alone, and he learns how to survive, and he also gets rescued at the end of the story. An interesting thing that I did when I read this book is that when I started reading this book, it was like a couple hours before I ate. And as I'm reading this book, I decided to not eat until I finished this book. And that really added to the experience of this book. And this is a really fantastic book. The way that he gets stranded, I'm not going to give anything away, is really great. I mean, it's a very interesting thing that happens that gets him stuck in this wilderness by himself. And how he gets out is very interesting as well. Really entertaining, very engrossing, and it was really satisfying finishing this book because when I finally got to the end, I actually had a meal and I didn't eat like in 24 hours because this took me like 24 hours to finish this book, and I didn't have any food until I finished this, and it was a really satisfying meal after reading this book. I highly recommend this one, just like I recommend the Master and Margarita. Both are fantastic books. Now, the next one is a book by Chuck Palahniuk, and this is Choke. And this is the guy that wrote Fight Club. And I liked Fight Club more than I liked this, but at the same time, this is kind of interesting as well. This is definitely not for younger readers. If this had ratings on books, this would definitely be R, maybe even X-rated, because there's a lot that's about being in a Sex Addicts Anonymous. They're, kind of like AA, but for sex addicts. And there's a lot of graphic sexual content in this book, but funny. In a way, it is very funny. And this is also a person that's raised by a crazy woman. And the way it starts off is like you're wondering what's going on. You find out that his mother is crazy. And this is a pretty interesting book on how he's visiting his mother. She's kind of crazy, and all the people in the home that she's in is crazy as well. The ending of it to the story was kind of disappointing to me, but there is kind of like a reveal at the end of this story that was pretty interesting. I prefer Fight Club more than this, but this was an interesting story. It's unique and it's bizarre, but I don't highly recommend this, but this definitely is an interesting book, and I kind of want to look at this again later to see, because now I know something. There's something that gets revealed, just like in Fight Club. Fight Club is an interesting story because you find something out later in the story. At the end of the story, you find something out, which was really cool. So this is Choke by Chuck Palahniuk, and that's the third one, actually the eighth one. And then I went and read this one. This is a noir, definitely noir. This is a detective story, but not a detective is solving this case. This is a person that is connected with the people involved in this case. This is The Glass Key. This is by Dashiell Hammett, and this is the same person that wrote The Maltese Falcon. And yeah, this is my Cinnabon right here. I love her so much. She's old, man. She's about 25. And by her being so old, I spoil her to death. I definitely, when we lose her, I want to be sure that I've done everything that I can to make her happy when she goes. But yeah, this is The Glass Key, and this is a detective novel. And but it's not a detective. And this is definitely a noir story. And there's a movie that I watched afterwards starring George Raft that's in black and white, and it was pretty interesting. I can't really give too many things away because it's kind of a detective story, and it's kind of a mystery, and you find out something at the end of this story, and it was pretty interesting. I like this more than The Maltese Falcon, and yeah, this was a pretty interesting book, and there you go. The Glass Key by Dashiell Hammett. Now, the last thing for so where I reached 90 is I read this book, and this is The Little Mermaid and a bunch of other short stories in this book. This has about 7, 8 I mean, maybe 12 short stories. Now, some of these short stories really aren't much, but The Little Mermaid, this is written by Hans Christian Andersen, and if I just made a copy where it said it was The Little Mermaid by Stephen King, you would believe it because it's very dark. The Little Mermaid is a lot darker than the cartoon that Disney made. I'm not really giving too much away, but when she has her legs, it's very painful for her to get legs and leave the fishtail. And when she walks, it's very painful. And there's a dark part to this. This is definitely a lot darker than the cartoon of The Little Mermaid. I haven't seen the more recent version of The Little Mermaid. Maybe when I plan on one day and checking it out just to see the difference. I highly doubt that it's going to top the cartoon version back in 1989, I think it was. Now, I kind of like the short story a little bit more than the Disney cartoon, although I love the Disney cartoon. And there's another story in here, Great Klaus and Little Klaus, and that was pretty much my favorite in this whole collection of short stories. And the thing about it is, it was very funny. I was cracking up laughing as I was reading this book. It was very, very funny, but in a dark humor. It's death is humorous in this story. It's really fun. I really enjoyed Great Klaus and Little Klaus. Also, The Emperor's New Clothes was a very entertaining story. But one thing about The Emperor's New Clothes is the villains of the story never get punished for what they do. At least they don't talk about it. Kind of like It's a Wonderful Life. And we got the ugly duckling, and that's like the typical fairy tale. The Princess and the Pea, that's a very short one. The Snow Queen and Nightingale were not my favorite ones of this, but yeah, all these stories were at least decent, and I was surprised in how dark his writing was, man. And also, Great Klaus, Little Klaus, if I told you that was a Stephen King story, you'd probably believe me, because it's kind of dark. And The Emperor's New Clothes, that's very funny. And Thumbelina is in this story, a lot of them. Yeah, but this was a pretty entertaining book. So there we go, 95 to 90. So I've got 90 down. I mean, I've got 10 books down, 90 to go to complete the Read What You Own challenge. And then I finished the 10 before the end. I read those 5 books, plus I also read Stephen King's Dr. Sleep. Then I read Marathon Man. Love this one. I talk about it in the last video that I made. Really great book. Then we had, I got it over here, but Great Expectations. I got the book over here somewhere. That one, just like I'm doing with the Master and Margarita, I'm actually reading Great Expectations again. That's another case to where you're going to enjoy the story more the second time around, because you know certain things that you wouldn't possibly know when you first read it, you know. And there's certain details that makes it really interesting. So I read Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. And this is number 9. This is Schindler's List. This was really fantastic. I really enjoyed this. I talked about that in the last video. But yeah, I recommend this heavily. Very good book. And then I read this one. This is Star Wars Rebel Force. And this is book 1, Target. Now, thank God that I actually read this and I didn't make the video, because I was going to put these 5 books together. Because I didn't know this, but now that I know, this is like an arching story. This is a 6-part book series. I have 1, 2, 3, and I don't have 4, and I don't have 5, and I have 6. And I was going to read 6, but I don't want to do that until I have 4 and 5. So when I get done with this challenge, I'm going to get book 4 and 5, and then I'm going to read those 3 books. But I read this one, and yeah, this is a really interesting story. It's got a pod race in here, and now I know, I didn't know this because I already read part 3 already. And when I start reading it, there's a character in part 3 that's in this one. They're introduced, the kind of a villain of this series, X7. You'll know that right away if you ever read this series. And it winds up with a pod race at the end of this book. Now, this is set directly after Star Wars. This is before Empire Strikes Back. So you know this right away when you're reading this, because they're trying to figure out who blew up the Death Star. And the Empire does not know who blew up the Death Star. And you find out how the Empire finds out who blew up the Death Star, and how Darth Vader is on a quest for Luke Skywalker, because they actually reveal it to them in this book. So, and this is where I was successful with the read before the end, 10 before the end, and I actually finished this 2 days before New Year's Eve. So I was done. And then I've read this one already. But this is book one. This is the next set of 5 books. This one. Then I'm going to read this one, which I've actually finished this one. I'm going to reread this one again, but I'm not going to count that on the Read What You Own challenge. And then I'm going to read Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. I have not read this before. This is probably not going to have a lot of differences than the movie. I plan on reading this and then watching the movie, because I believe this came out after the movie. And I'm not sure, though. I'm not sure. Patricia C. Werde is the person that wrote this. But yeah, I'm going to check that out. And then I'm going to stick with the Star Wars, and I'm going to read this book that doesn't really have a title cover, but this is The Rise and Fall of Darth Vader. And I always have been a big fan of Darth Vader. I love the back. It's really awesome, Darth Vader picture. But yeah, this is the whole story of Darth Vader, one of my favorite villains of all time. I mean, I remember seeing Star Wars when I was 8 years old, and I really, really loved it. And I'm really looking forward to checking this out. But I'm going to reread this, but it's not going to count. And then this is going to be the 5th book of my to be read list, and that's this one. This is a Boba Fett story, the fight to survive, a Clones Wars novel. And it's Boba Fett. He's another one of my favorite villains from Star Wars. I really enjoy that character a lot, and I'm looking forward to it. So there you go. There's me getting to 90 more books to go. I've already gotten 2 down, so I'm pretty much at 88 books to go. And that's pretty much my books coming in the future, and that's the books I've read. I'm sorry that it's taken me so long to get to this video. Now the thing about it is that I have a plan now. I'm actually on the quest of getting a microphone, a Bluetooth microphone with noise reduction. That way I could actually make more videos a lot easier, because then people could be in the house and the background noise, because I live in a very loud house at times. So I'm going to be on the quest for that. So if you enjoy this video, please hit the like button. And if you really like it, subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comments. If you've read any of these books, if you're a Star Wars fan, let me know. Say the Force is with me, or the Force be with you, and I will really enjoy that, because I'm a big Star Wars fan. And that's about it. I want to thank you for coming by, and I will see you in the next video. See you next time.